The last time I saw my sister smile was at our father's funeral. Not a grief-stricken smile or even a polite one. It was the kind of smile that made my stomach turn, the kind that spoke of victory rather than loss. I watched her from across the cemetery, her designer black dress catching the autumn wind as she clutched the will in her manicured hands. My name is Vada, and that day marked the beginning of the end of my relationship with my twin sister, Tori. He left everything to her. My mother whispered beside me, her voice trembling. Everything except the old beach house. Linda, Mom, grabbed my hand, squeezing it so tight I could feel her wedding ring pressing into my skin. I watched Tori strut across the cemetery like it was a runway, her heels sinking slightly into the damp grass with each step. She stopped in front of us, that smile still playing on her lips. Well, looks like Daddy's favorite finally got her due, she said, waving the document in front of Mom's face. Guess all those years of backing him up during your fights paid off. Tori, stop it, I snapped. Dad's barely in the ground. She turned to me, tilting her head. We might have been identical twins, but in that moment, I couldn't recognize a single familiar feature in her face. Oh, sister dear, always playing the moral compass. How's that working out for you? Still living in that cramped apartment, driving that secondhand car? Mom stepped forward. Tori, please, we're family. Family? Tori's laugh cut through the cemetery like breaking glass. Family doesn't mean much when there's a fortune at stake, does it? You tried to turn Dad against me for years, but look who won in the end. I felt my blood boiling. That's not what happened, and you know it. Mom supported Dad through everything. The drinking, the gambling, the affairs. She stayed loyal even when he didn't deserve it. Loyal? Tori scoffed. Is that what we're calling it now? Well, you can keep your loyalty. I'll take the estate, the company, and every penny he left me. She turned to Mom, her voice dripping with contempt. Don't worry. I'll make sure the beach house taxes are paid up. Wouldn't want you losing your little consolation prize. Tori. Mom's voice was soft, reaching out to touch her arm. Please don't do this. Don't let money destroy what we have. Tori jerked away like Mom's touch burned her. What we have? We have nothing. And Vada? She turned to me, her eyes cold. You'll regret choosing her side. Mark my words. In a few years, when I'm running Dad's company and you're still playing nurse at that shabby clinic, you'll realize what a mistake you made today. I stepped between her and Mom. The only mistake here is thinking money matters more than family. We'll see about that. Tori straightened her designer sunglasses, checking her reflection in them. I'd say see you around, but I won't. I'm done with both of you. The lawyers will handle everything from here. She turned on her heel, that smile still firmly in place, and walked away. I watched her slide into her new Mercedes, Dad's last gift to her before he died, and drive off without a backward glance. Mom collapsed into me, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I held her tight, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost pressing down on us. Not just Dad, but Tori too. My twin, my other half, now as good as dead to us. It's okay, Mom, I whispered, though nothing about this was okay. We still have each other. We'll figure it out. Later that night, as I helped Mom sort through old photos in the beach house, our new home, I came across a picture of Tori and me on our 16th birthday. We were wearing matching outfits, arms around each other, grinning at the camera without a care in the world. I touched Tori's face in the photo, wondering how we'd ended up here. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Tori. Hope you enjoy playing martyr with Mom. Just remember, you chose this. I deleted the message without responding and looked around the small beach house. It needed work. The roof leaked, the pipes groaned, and the paint was peeling. But it was ours. Mom was already in the kitchen, making tea in chipped mugs, humming softly to herself like she always did when she was trying to be brave. You know what, Mom? I called out, setting the photo aside. I think we got the better deal. She appeared in the doorway holding 2 steaming mugs. How do you figure that? I took one of the mugs, breathing in the familiar scent of chamomile. Because we still know what matters, and it's not what's in Dad's will. 5 years can change everything and nothing at all. The beach house Mom and I had inherited now gleamed with fresh paint and new windows, but every time I walked through the door, I still expected to see Tori lounging on the porch like she used to when we were kids. "Look what came in the mail today," Mom said, waving a glossy magazine as I arrived for our weekly dinner. She'd aged gracefully these past years, her silver hair catching the sunset streaming through the windows. I took the magazine, and my breath caught. There was Tori on the cover of Business Success, looking polished and powerful in a red blazer. The headline read, "Rising Star, How the CEO Turned a Family Business into a Fortune 500 Company." Well, she certainly got what she wanted, I said, tossing the magazine onto the coffee table. Mom touched my arm. "Sadie called earlier. She said she saw Tori at that new restaurant downtown last week. Apparently she asked about you." "Did she now?" I pulled plates from the cabinet, trying to ignore the familiar ache in my chest. "Probably just wanted to make sure I'm still struggling without Dad's money." "Actually," Mom hesitated, "Sadie said she seemed different. Maybe—" The doorbell interrupted her. I opened it to find Lyle, my boyfriend of 2 years, holding a bottle of wine and wearing that crooked smile I loved so much. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing my cheek. "The hospital was crazy today." He handed the wine to Mom. "Linda, you look lovely as always." We settled around the dinner table, the conversation flowing easily as it always did with Lyle. He'd been my rock through everything, never judging my choice to stand by Mom, never questioning why I stayed at the community clinic instead of chasing bigger opportunities. "Oh, before I forget," Mom said, reaching for her phone, "your cousin Rachel sent me this link. You might want to see it." She passed me her phone, and I nearly choked on my wine. It was an invitation to a charity gala, and there at the top was Tori's name as the host. The event was next week, promising an evening of philanthropy and networking at the city's most exclusive hotel. "She sent invitations to the whole family," Mom explained softly. "Even me." Lyle squeezed my hand under the table. "Are you thinking of going?" I stared at the screen, at the RSVP button that seemed to pulse like a warning. "I don't know. It feels like a trap." "Or maybe," Mom ventured, "it's an olive branch?" Later that night, as Lyle and I walked along the beach, the waves crashing against the shore matched my turbulent thoughts. "You know," he said, "sometimes the hardest thing isn't standing up for what's right. It's maintaining that stance when the world tries to make you doubt yourself." I kicked at the sand. "I don't doubt myself. I doubt her." "You didn't see her that day at the funeral, Lyle? The way she looked at Mom." My phone buzzed. A text from Sadie. "Girl, you need to see this." Attached was a link to a business article about Tori's company. The headline made my heart skip. "Bailey Enterprises faces securities investigation." "What is it?" Lyle asked, noting my expression. "Karma, maybe?" I showed him the article. "Looks like all that success might not be as solid as it appears." "Are you going to the gala?" I looked out at the ocean, remembering how Tori and I used to swim here every summer, how we'd promised to always have each other's backs. "Yes," I finally said, "but not for her. I want to see for myself what she's built with everything she took from us." Back inside, Mom was still up, reading that magazine with Tori's face on it. She looked up as I entered. "I got an email from Emma, Tori's business partner. She says things aren't what they seem at the company." "Mom, don't get your hopes up. Tori made her choice." She set the magazine down, her eyes tired but determined. "People can change, Vada. Even Tori." I picked up my purse, ready to head home. Maybe, but change doesn't erase consequences. As I drove home that night, my phone lit up with another text. This time from an unknown number. "Looking forward to seeing you at the gala, sis. Hope you're ready to see what real success looks like. T." I pulled into my driveway, looking at my modest house with its small garden and wind chimes Lyle had hung last spring. Success, I thought, comes in many forms, and some of them can't be measured in dollars or magazine covers. I typed back a simple response. "I'll be there." The Grand Plaza Hotel lobby sparkled with wealth and pretense. I smoothed down my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned, and felt Lyle's reassuring presence beside me. "Ready?" he whispered, offering his arm. "As I'll ever be." The ballroom was a scene from another world. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and people wearing jewelry that could probably fund my clinic for a year. And there, holding court in the center of it all, was Tori. She spotted me immediately. Twin radar, I suppose. For a moment, something flickered across her face, something that reminded me of the sister I used to know. Then her professional mask slipped back into place. "Vada," she called out, gliding toward us. "You actually came." Her eyes swept over my dress, my shoes, Lyle. "And you brought a friend?" "My partner, Lyle," I said firmly. "He's a doctor at Memorial." "How quaint." Tori's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, enjoy the party. Open bar, though maybe stick to the domestic wines." She turned to leave, but I caught her arm. "That's it? 5 years and that's all you have to say?" She jerked away. "What do you want me to say? How's Mom? Still living in that shabby beach house?" "The house is beautiful now, not that you'd know." A woman in a sharp business suit approached us, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Tori, the investors are asking for you." She turned to me, recognition dawning. "You must be the twin sister. I'm Emma, Tori's business partner." "Nice to meet you," I said, noticing how Tori tensed at Emma's arrival. "The famous Vada." Emma smiled, but something in her expression seemed off. "Tori never mentioned you were identical." "There's a lot Tori doesn't mention," I replied. Emma's smile tightened. "Well, we should—" "Actually," Tori interrupted, "I need a moment with my sister. Emma, handle the investors." Emma's eyes narrowed slightly before she nodded and walked away. Tori grabbed my elbow, steering me toward a quiet corner. "Look," she hissed. "I invited you here as a courtesy. Don't make this complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed. "Like disowning your family for money? That kind of complicated?" "You don't understand. I built something here. Something bigger than beach houses and family dinners." "And how's that working out?" I asked. "I saw the article about the securities investigation." Tori's face paled slightly before she caught herself. "Tabloid nonsense. We're doing fine." "Are you? Because Emma doesn't seem to think so." "What did she tell you?" Tori's voice sharpened. "Nothing, but your reaction just did." Lyle appeared with 2 glasses of champagne, offering me one. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect," Tori said, her fake smile back in place. "I was just telling my sister about our latest acquisition. 50 million in revenue last quarter." "Impressive," Lyle said coolly. "Though I've always found it interesting how people flaunt numbers when they're trying to hide something." Tori's smile froze. "Excuse me?" Before she could respond, Emma's voice cut through the crowd. "Tori, the board members are waiting." "Duty calls," Tori said, but I caught the slight tremor in her hand as she smoothed her dress. "Enjoy the party. It's probably the only one like it you'll ever attend." As she walked away, I overheard Emma whisper urgently, "We need to talk about the audit. Things aren't looking good." Lyle squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "Did you see it?" I asked. "She's scared. The mighty dewfall," he murmured. "Want to stay?" I watched Tori work the room, her laughter a pitch too high, her gestures a bit too sharp. "Yes, I want to see how this plays out." Throughout the evening, I observed from a distance. Tori kept glancing at her phone, her composure cracking slightly each time. Emma moved through the crowd like a shark, having intense whispered conversations with various business-looking types. Near midnight, I headed to the bathroom and found Emma touching up her makeup. "Your sister's quite the piece of work," she said, not looking at me. "You don't know the half of it." Emma capped her lipstick. "Actually, I do, and soon everyone else will too." She turned to face me. "Word of advice? Distance yourself now. What's coming isn't pretty." She left me standing there, her words hanging in the air like smoke. When I returned to the ballroom, Tori was giving a speech about success and family legacy. Our eyes met across the room, and for a second, I saw real fear in them. I took Lyle's arm. "Let's go home." "You sure?" "Yeah. I've seen everything I needed to see." As we left, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "We should talk. There's something you need to know about your sister's company." The coffee shop was quiet when Emma walked in, her designer suit out of place among the morning crowd of college students and remote workers. She slid into the booth across from me, declining my offer of coffee. "I'll make this quick," she said, pulling out a tablet. "Your sister's been cooking the books for months. The company's bleeding money, but she's been hiding it with creative accounting and fake contracts." I stared at the spreadsheets she showed me, numbers dancing across the screen. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because in 3 days, I'm taking this to the board." Emma's perfectly manicured nails tapped the screen. "And then to the SEC. You're betraying her?" "She betrayed herself, and everyone else." Emma leaned forward. "Did you know she used your father's pension fund as collateral for a failed venture? 300 employees could lose everything." My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. That pension fund was supposed to support the long-time employees into retirement. "Exactly. Your father built this company on loyalty. Tori's destroying it with greed." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Have you seen the news? Tori's on every business channel." Emma smiled grimly. "Ah, right on schedule. The first rumors are hitting the press." I pulled up a news site. The headlines screamed about potential fraud at Bailey Enterprises, with Tori's photo prominently displayed. The company's stock was already dropping. "Why tell me all this?" I asked. "Because despite everything, you're still her sister, and she might listen to you." Emma stood up. "She has 48 hours to resign voluntarily before I go to the board. After that, it gets ugly." After Emma left, I sat there watching the news unfold on my phone. Sadie called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. Finally, I called Lyle. "I saw the news," he said before I could speak. "Are you okay?" "I need to talk to her." "Vada." "I know, but—" "No, listen," he interrupted. "Your sister's office building is surrounded by reporters. It's all over the local news." I grabbed my keys. "Then I know where she'll go." The beach house looked exactly as it had the day before, but it felt different now. Mom opened the door before I could knock. "She's here," Mom said softly. "In your old room." I found Tori sitting on my childhood bed, staring at her phone. She looked smaller somehow, her power suit wrinkled, her makeup smudged. "Come to gloat?" she asked without looking up. Emma showed me the books. That got her attention. She looked up, mascara streaked under her eyes. Of course she did. Guess the knife in my back needed a twist. "The pension fund, Tori? Really? I was going to fix it." She stood up, pacing. "1 good quarter. That's all I needed. The Asian deal was supposed to save everything. By gambling with people's retirements, Dad's employees trusted you." "Dad's employees?" Tori laughed hysterically. "Dad was a drunk who got lucky in business. I built this company into something real. And now you've destroyed it." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and went pale. No. "What?" "Emma's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." Tori sank back onto the bed. "It's over. Everything I built, gone." I sat beside her, close enough to smell her expensive perfume. "You did this to yourself. Like you did so much better," she snapped. "Still working at that tiny clinic, living in that small house?" "At least I can sleep at night." Tori's phone buzzed again. A text from Emma. "Resign now, or tomorrow I show them everything." "She's bluffing," Tori whispered, but her voice shook. "Is she?" Tori stood suddenly, grabbing her purse. "I need to go. I can still fix this." "Tori, wait." But she was already running down the stairs. I heard Mom call out to her, heard the front door slam, heard tires screech on gravel. Mom appeared in the doorway. What happened? She's going to make it worse, I said, pulling out my phone to call Lyle. Should we try to stop her? I looked at the empty doorway where my sister had disappeared. No. Sometimes people need to hit bottom before they can see the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Your sister just called, threatening to expose my past indiscretions if I go to the board. Watch the news tomorrow. This won't end well for her. I looked out the window at the ocean, remembering how Tori and I used to believe we were unsinkable. Now I wondered if anyone would be able to save her from drowning in the mess she'd created. Mom, I said, I think tomorrow's going to be a very bad day. The news broke at 9 a.m. sharp. I watched from the clinic's break room as Tori's face filled every screen, the crawling headlines telling the story. CEO steps down amid fraud allegations. Bailey Enterprises stock plummets. Federal investigation launched. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Sadie, Lyle, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted to know if I'd seen the news. But one message stood out from the rest. I need you. Please. T. I found her at Dad's grave, of all places. She sat on the damp grass, her designer suit ruined, clutching a half-empty bottle of scotch. Dad's favorite brand. Fitting, isn't it? She slurred as I approached. Daddy's golden child, drinking herself stupid at his grave. He'd be so proud. Give me the bottle, Tori. She hugged it closer. Why? Afraid I'll turn out like him? Too late for that. She took another swig. Emma played me. All this time, she was gathering evidence, building her case. She gave you a chance to step down quietly. And let her take my company? Never. Tori laughed bitterly. Well, guess what? She got it anyway, along with every other vulture on the board. I sat down beside her, ignoring the morning dew soaking through my scrubs. What happens now? Now? She gestured wildly with the bottle. Now I get to watch everything I built burn to the ground. The SEC is investigating. The pension fund is gone. My accounts are frozen. Her voice cracked. I have nothing. You have family. Family? She turned to me, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I threw that away, remember? For this. For nothing. A jogger passed by, doing a double take at the sight of us. Tomorrow's tabloid headline, no doubt. Disgraced CEO drunk at father's grave. Come on, I said, standing up. You can't stay here. Where am I supposed to go? The press is camped outside my apartment. My so-called friends won't take my calls. Even my assistant quit. You're coming home. She looked up at me, squinting against the morning sun. Home? The beach house. Mom's already made up your old room. Mom hates me. Mom loves you, despite everything. I held out my hand. Come on, sis. Let me help. She stared at my hand for a long moment before taking it, stumbling as she stood. I caught her, and for a second she leaned into me like we were kids again, seeking comfort after a nightmare. I really screwed up, didn't I? She whispered. Yeah, you did. The drive to the beach house was silent except for the radio news still dissecting Tori's downfall. I switched it off after the third mention of potential criminal charges. Mom was waiting on the porch, just like I knew she would be. Tori froze in the car, gripping the door handle. I can't, she said. Not after everything I said to her. You can and you will. I got out and opened her door. Because that's what family does. We come home when we have nowhere else to go. Mom met us halfway down the path. For a moment, no one moved. Then Tori crumpled, falling into Mom's arms like she was 5 years old again. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Shh, Mom stroked her hair. Let's get you inside. Later, after Tori had showered and fallen into an exhausted sleep, I found Mom in the kitchen making tea. She left a note, Mom said, holding out a crumpled paper. On her pillow. I found it when I was making up her room. I read it, my hands shaking. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't know who else to trust. Everything's falling apart, and it's all my fault. Please don't turn me away. She's going to need us, Mom said, pouring 3 cups of tea. The worst is still coming. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Your sister's lucky to have you. But be careful, she's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. As if on cue, I heard Tori's voice from upstairs. No, you listen. I don't care what it takes. Find something on Emma. Everyone has secrets. Dig deeper. I exchanged looks with Mom. The road ahead would be harder than we thought. One step at a time, Mom said, reading my expression. First, we get her through tonight. I nodded, picking up a cup of tea to take to Tori. Whatever she was planning, whatever was coming next, she wouldn't face it alone. Not this time. You need to stop this, Tori, I said, barging into her room and holding up my phone. On the screen was a news alert. Former CEO accused of harassment campaign against board members. Tori barely looked up from her laptop. 3 days at the beach house had done little to temper her revenge plotting. They deserve everything coming to them. The restraining order Emma just filed says otherwise. She's lying. Tori slammed her laptop shut, just like she lied about everything else. Did she, or did she just expose your lies? Tori stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. You don't understand. I had plans. The Asian merger was going to save everything. If she'd just given me more time to lose more people's money? I picked up a stack of newspapers from her desk. Have you even read these? The pension fund is gone, Tori. People who worked for Dad for 30 years have nothing. I can fix it. How? By digging up dirt on Emma? By threatening the board members? I threw the papers down. When does it stop? A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom stood there, holding her phone. Tori, honey, your lawyer's on the line. He says it's urgent. Tori grabbed the phone and disappeared downstairs. Mom gave me a worried look. She's getting worse, I said. I know, but last night when you were at work, she told me something. Mom lowered her voice. About Dad. About why she really took the company. What do you mean? Before Mom could answer, Tori's voice exploded from downstairs. They can't do this. I built that company. We rushed down to find her pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear. No, you listen to me. I don't care about the optics. Fight this. She hung up and threw the phone across the room. They're suing me. The board, the shareholders, everyone. They want everything. Tori, Mom started. Don't. Tori whirled on her. Don't try to make this better. You have no idea what I've been through, what Dad put me through. Then tell us, I said quietly. Tori laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Tell you, fine. You want to know why I took the company? Why I needed to prove myself? She turned to Mom. Because Dad told me I was just like you. Weak, emotional, unable to make the hard choices. Mom went pale. What? The night before he died, he called me to his office. Said he was changing his will, leaving me the company instead of splitting it. Said I had to be different from you. Better. Tori's voice cracked. He said the only way to succeed was to be ruthless, to cut out anything, anyone who might hold me back. Oh, honey, Mom whispered. So I did it. I became what he wanted, cut out my weakness. Tori's eyes filled with tears. And look where it got me. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, I spoke. Dad was wrong. Was he? Tori gestured around. Mom stayed strong through his abuse, his affairs, everything. And what did she get? A broken-down beach house and a daughter who abandoned her. No, Mom said firmly. I got peace. I got to keep my soul. And now I have both my daughters back. You don't want me back, Tori whispered. I'm poison. Everything I touch turns to ash. I crossed the room and grabbed her shoulders. Then let it burn. Start over. How? The lawsuits will take everything. Then let them. I shook her gently. Give it up, Tori. All of it. The company, the money, the revenge, just Let it go. And then what? Her voice was small, almost childlike. Then we rebuild. Together. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her resist for a moment before collapsing against me. But first, you have to stop fighting. Mom joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. Your father was wrong about so many things, she said softly. Don't let him be wrong about you too. Tori's phone buzzed from where it had landed. She pulled away to retrieve it, reading the message with shaking hands. Emma's offering a deal, she said. If I cooperate with the investigation, return what's left of the pension fund, they'll ask for leniency. Take it, I said immediately. But take it, Tori. End this. She looked between Mom and me, then down at her phone. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. As she stepped outside to call her lawyer, Mom touched my arm. She's going to need us more than ever now. I watched my sister through the window, standing at the edge of the deck, looking out at the ocean. I know. And this time we'll be there. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when we arrived. Tori gripped my hand, her fingers ice cold despite the summer heat. Gone were the designer suits and perfect makeup. She wore a simple blue dress Mom had bought her at the department store. Ready? I asked. She nodded, her face pale but determined. I have to do this. The camera started flashing as soon as we emerged from the car. Reporters shouted questions. Miss Bailey, what do you say to the employees who lost their pensions? Any comment on Emma's testimony? Are the rumors of offshore accounts true? Lyle and Mom flanked us like bodyguards as we pushed through the crowd. Just before we reached the doors, I heard a familiar voice. Tori? Wait. Emma stood at the bottom of the steps, looking immaculate as always. Tori froze. What are you doing here? I demanded. Haven't you done enough? I came to give her this. Emma held out a USB drive. It's everything. All the evidence, including things the board doesn't know about yet. Tori stared at the drive. Why? Because you're going in there to tell the truth, aren't you? Emma's voice softened. This will prove you're being honest. It might help. Tori reached for the drive with trembling fingers. I don't understand. You destroyed me. No, Emma said firmly. You destroyed yourself. I just couldn't watch you take everyone else down with you. Inside the courtroom, Tori sat before the judge, her voice steady as she detailed everything. The fraudulent contracts, the hidden losses, Dad's manipulation, her desperate attempts to prove herself. And the pension fund? The judge asked. I've liquidated everything, Tori replied. My properties, investments, everything of value. It covers about 60% of what was lost. And the remaining 40%? I'll spend the rest of my life paying it back if I have to. The judge studied her for a long moment. Miss Bailey, do you understand the severity of your actions? Yes, Your Honor. Tori's voice cracked. I destroyed people's lives trying to live up to a legacy that was toxic to begin with. I became exactly what my father wanted, and in doing so, I lost myself. The sentencing felt both harsh and merciful. 5 years probation, complete restitution of funds, community service, a lifetime ban from serving as an officer in any public company. Outside, the reporters were still waiting. But this time, Tori faced them directly. I have a statement to make, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. To everyone I hurt, the employees, the shareholders, my family, I am deeply sorry. I can't undo what I did, but I will spend every day trying to make it right. Back at the beach house, we sat on the deck watching the sunset. Mom brought out coffee, and for a while, no one spoke. I got a job offer today, Tori finally said. I turned to her, surprised. Already? The community center where I'll be doing my service hours. They need someone to teach basic business skills to at-risk youth. She smiled weakly. Ironic, right? Actually, I said, it's perfect. It pays almost nothing. But it's honest work, Mom added. That's worth more than any salary. Tori's phone buzzed, her first new phone, a basic model to replace the expensive one she'd had to sell. It was a text from Emma. "You did the right thing today. Good luck." "She's not wrong," I said, reading over her shoulder. "You did good today, sis." "I'm scared," Tori admitted. "I don't know how to be normal, how to live without all the things I thought made me successful." Lyle, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "Success isn't about what you have. It's about who you are." "And who am I now?" Tori asked softly. "You're my daughter," Mom said, taking her hand. "You're Vada's sister. You're someone who faced her mistakes and chose to make them right. You're starting over," I added. "And this time, you're not alone." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ocean in shades of gold and pink. Tori leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she used to when we were kids. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "That's what family does," I replied. "We hold on, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when we don't deserve it." Especially then. As darkness fell, we could hear the waves crashing against the shore. The sound was the same as it had always been, constant and unchanging, like the love that had brought us back together. "So," Tori said, managing a small smile, "about that community center job." And just like that, we began to rebuild. The autumn wind carried the scent of salt and coffee as I stepped onto the community center's back patio. Tori stood at the railing, watching her students file out after their evening business class. "Miss T," one teenager called out, waving. "I got that job at the cafe." "That's fantastic, Maria," Tori beamed. "Remember what we talked about with the register counts?" "Trust but verify," Maria replied with a grin before running off to catch up with her friends. I handed Tori a coffee. "Look at you, making a difference." "They make the difference," she said, watching the kids leave. "I just show them how." The setting sun painted the parking lot gold, reminding me of another sunset not so long ago, when everything had seemed broken beyond repair. "Got something to show you," I said, pulling out an envelope. Tori opened it and gasped. Inside was a check, the final restitution payment for the pension fund. "How?" she whispered. I still had 3 more years of payments. "Remember that tech startup Mom invested in? The one you helped her evaluate? The solar panel company? That actually worked?" I nodded. "Mom sold her shares yesterday. She wants you to have the money to clear the debt." Tori's hands shook. "I can't accept this. After everything," she said, and I quote, "Tell her it's not a gift. It's an investment in who she's becoming." Tears spilled down Tori's cheeks. "I don't deserve any of this." "Hey," I turned her to face me. "Remember what you tell your students about second chances? That they're not given, they're earned." She wiped her eyes. I keep waiting for everyone to remember who I was and turn their backs. Who you were isn't who you are." My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Don't forget, dinner at 6. Lyle's bringing the ring." Tori read the message over my shoulder and managed a watery smile. "So he's finally going to do it?" "Yeah. He wanted to make sure you'd be there." "Me? Why?" "Because you're my sister, dummy. And he knows how much that means." We gathered our things and headed to the parking lot. As we walked, a familiar figure stepped out from behind a car. "Emma?" Our former adversary looked different, softer somehow, in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual power suits. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I wanted to see for myself." "See what?" Tori asked warily. "If the rumors were true, about you teaching here, making a difference." Emma smiled. "The board's been talking about starting a foundation for at-risk youth. We could use someone who understands both business and second chances." Tori stared at her. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to expand what you're already doing. These kids trust you, Tori. You could help more of them. I'll think about it." Emma nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I like this version of you better. After she left, Tori and I stood in the gathering darkness. Well? I asked. I don't know. The community center needs me. They'll always need you, but maybe you can help them and do more. Tori linked her arm through mine as we walked to my car. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so humble. At the beach house, Mom was setting the table while Lyle nervously fiddled with his pocket. The engagement ring would stay hidden until dessert, but we all knew what was coming. Before we start, Tori said, standing, I have something to say. She pulled out the restitution check. Mom, I can't take this. Yes, you can. Mom replied firmly. No, listen. I want to use it to start a scholarship fund. For kids like Maria, who deserve their own second chances. The pride in Mom's eyes could have lit up the whole beach. Even better. As we sat down to eat, I looked around the table. At Mom, who never lost faith. At Lyle, who stood by us through everything. At Tori, who lost everything only to find something more valuable. Remember when you said I'd regret choosing Mom's side? I asked her softly. She winced. I was so wrong. No, I said, squeezing her hand. You were right. I do regret it. She looked at me, startled. I regret that it took losing you to bring you back to us. Really back to us. Tori squeezed my hand back. Me too, sis. Me too. Outside, the waves crashed against the shore, constant and unchanging. But inside, everything had changed. And finally, wonderfully, it had changed for the better.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl. I'm 29 years old, and I recently went through a divorce. This event wasn't just a turning point in my life. It also included a fair share of dramatic fallout with my ex-husband, Richard, and his difficult mother, Doris. I first crossed paths with Richard during an internship in the final year of my college studies. We dated for 4 years before he proposed, leading us to the altar. Our married life, however, was filled with continuous ups and downs. Richard was exceptionally attached to his mother, to the extent that if he didn't speak to her daily, his mood would sour. Doris had pampered him to the point where he was helpless with even the simplest household tasks. Doris's disdain for me was evident right from our first meeting. She would often demean my accomplishments and insult me, making it clear she thought I was not a suitable match for her son. Whenever I confronted her about her behavior, her justification was blunt and hurtful. She believed I wasn't good enough for Richard. What made matters worse was Richard's inability to stand up for me. Our arguments about this were frequent, but he maintained he could never oppose his mother. Over time, I learned to disregard her barbs, and eventually Doris stopped communicating with me altogether. About a year into our marriage, Richard and I decided to try for a baby. Wanting to devote myself fully to prospective motherhood, I left my job to minimize stress. Unfortunately, despite our efforts, I did not become pregnant for a long time, which visibly strained our relationship. Struggling with feelings of inadequacy, I decided to return to work to divert my attention from our fertility issues. A few months after resuming work, I started feeling unusually ill. Initially, I dismissed it as a minor issue, but as my condition worsened, I sought medical advice. After undergoing several tests, the doctor confirmed I was pregnant. This news filled me with immense joy, and I looked forward to sharing it with Richard, hopeful for what this new chapter would bring. I was thrilled, bursting with excitement to share some wonderful news with Richard. That evening, I decided to prepare his favorite meal as a special way to celebrate the moment. When he arrived home, I could hardly contain my joy. "Hey, babe, I have something important to share with you," I began as we sat down for dinner. Richard, looking weary, replied, "What is it? I'm really tired tonight. Can you keep it brief?" "Of course," I said, trying to manage my excitement. "You know how I've been feeling off and nauseous lately? I thought it was just some bad food, so I went to the doctor." His brow furrowed with concern. Is everything okay?" "Yes, better than okay, actually," I smiled, barely able to keep the news in any longer. "The blood test came back, and it turns out I'm pregnant." Richard's fatigue seemed to melt away instantly. "What? Oh my God, that's amazing news. I know, after all our efforts, it finally happened. I haven't mentioned this, but I was starting to lose hope." "Me too," he admitted. "I felt really down, thinking maybe it wouldn't happen for us. I know it's not right to tie our worth to this, but it was hard not feeling like I could do the one thing I so dearly wanted. But now, here we are. Everything's turned out well. However, the doctor did mention that it's a high-risk pregnancy, so we need to be very careful." "Don't worry about a thing," Richard assured me, his voice full of determination. "I'll take good care of you. We should start planning. There's a baby shower and maybe even a gender reveal to think about." I laughed gently, calming his rush of plans. "Let's just take a moment to enjoy this news between us first. We can share it with everyone else a bit later, once we're past the first trimester and more settled." "Right, of course," he agreed, his excitement still evident. "So, dinner's ready?" "Absolutely," I replied. The following months were challenging. I battled constant nausea and vomiting, a tough price to pay for the precious life growing inside me. Thankfully, Richard was incredibly supportive. Without his help, getting through those first 6 months would have been much harder. As my symptoms began to ease, Richard and I started to feel more hopeful and excited about the journey ahead. Following the joyful news of my pregnancy, Richard and I decided to host a baby shower to celebrate. We invited all our closest friends and family, and inevitably, Doris was among the attendees. Throughout the party, I did my best to keep my distance from her, but eventually she managed to corner both Richard and me, forcing a conversation. "Congratulations on the pregnancy, Cheryl," Doris said, her tone polite but distant. "Thank you, Doris," I replied, maintaining my composure. "It's been a tough ride, honestly. I've been quite sick most mornings, and it's been hard to even get out of bed." "That sounds rough, but I suppose it's all worth it, especially since it's been a long journey to get here," she noted, not without a hint of skepticism. "It truly is rewarding," I responded, trying to keep the atmosphere light. "It feels incredible to finally be pregnant." Doris then dropped a bombshell. "Really? You better hope that the baby is yours." Confused, I asked, "Excuse me? What do you mean?" "Well, doesn't it seem suspicious? You two were trying for over a year, and then suddenly after Cheryl returns to work, she gets pregnant. Are you suggesting something happened with a coworker?" Doris's insinuations were clear. Shocked, I responded, "Are you accusing me of cheating on Richard?" "I didn't say that. You did." "But why else would it happen right after you went back to work?" "Perhaps the stress of not being able to conceive led you to." "Seek relief elsewhere," Doris continued, her voice dripping with accusation. Richard chimed in, his mother's words affecting him. "Cheryl, is there any truth to this?" "Richard, are you serious? Do you really believe what your mother is suggesting over your wife?" I was dismayed by his doubt. "It's a simple question, Cheryl. Just give me a yes or no," he insisted. "Fine, Richard, if you need to hear it, no, I did not cheat on you." "I can't believe you'd even think that," I answered, hurt by his lack of trust. "Kind of," he muttered, still unsure. Unable to handle the emotional turmoil, I excused myself. "I need some space. Doris, your accusation is out of line. I've shown nothing but dedication and love to Richard, and it's heartbreaking that you'd insinuate otherwise." I retreated to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. That night, I cried myself to sleep, overwhelmed by the betrayal. It was hard to fathom how quickly Richard's trust could waver based on his mother's words. For the next few days, he didn't try to speak to me, and I was too hurt to initiate conversation. The pain of his doubt lingered, casting a shadow over what should have been a joyful time. Every time I saw Richard, a fresh wave of anger washed over me. Despite my hurt, I longed to bridge the gap between us, to understand why he doubted me. Eventually, Richard took the first step. "Hey, can we talk?" he asked. "I don't know, are you going to accuse me of cheating again?" My response was tinged with frustration. "There's no need to be sarcastic," he said, attempting to keep the conversation light. "I'm trying to communicate. If you're not ready, I can give you more time." "Fine, I'm sorry for being sharp. I'd like to talk," I conceded, my voice softening. "First of all, how are you feeling physically?" he began tentatively. "Physically, I feel great. Emotionally, though, it feels like I've been stabbed in the back," I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. "Why do you feel that way?" he asked, though it seemed obvious. "You can't be serious, I just want to understand you better," he continued, sensing my irritation. "Okay, here it is," I started, my frustration evident. "It hurt that you even entertained your mother's accusations of me cheating. I've been completely faithful, and you know very well how much your mother dislikes me. She'd do anything to see us apart, and yet you seem to consider her conspiracy." "I didn't believe her," Richard defended himself. "But you doubted me, even if just for a moment," I countered. "That doubt led you to question my fidelity. If you truly trusted me, you wouldn't have needed to ask about it at all." "You have to admit, my mom did raise a point worth considering," he tried to explain. "Do you realize that her accusation also indirectly insulted you, suggesting you couldn't have fathered a child?" I pointed out. "She implied you were impotent." "No, she did not," he replied, still in denial. "I don't care if you remain in denial, but don't ever question my loyalty again," I said firmly. "Here, you can even call my male co-workers to check if there was anything inappropriate." "That's not necessary," Richard hastily replied. "No, it seems necessary, especially since you think I could cheat on you and trick you into raising another man's child," I persisted. "I'm not calling your co-workers. That would be embarrassing for both of us," he admitted. "What I do want, though, is for us to take a DNA test after the baby is born, just to be sure." "Excuse me? I will not do that," I responded sharply, shocked and hurt by his continued mistrust. This conversation was spiraling into a deeper rift than I had hoped to mend. "I understand that emotions are running high right now, but let's put this conversation on hold until after the baby is born. For now, I want you to focus on having a stress-free pregnancy. Let's not bring this up again." Richard's words were meant to be reassuring, but they felt like a dismissal. I was too drained to argue. The pregnancy was already taking a toll on me, and I didn't need additional stress. During the remaining months of my pregnancy, Richard and I slept in separate rooms. He still took care of my basic needs, but the emotional distance was palpable. To make matters more complicated, Doris started visiting almost every day, spending hours with Richard in his office. Their hushed whispers only deepened the sense of betrayal I felt. When the time came, I endured a difficult labor, but was rewarded with the birth of a healthy baby girl. I briefly lost consciousness after delivery, but upon waking and seeing my daughter for the first time, I was struck by how much she resembled Richard. The thought crossed my mind that if Richard insisted on a DNA test now, it might be the last straw for our relationship. After being discharged from the hospital, I decided I needed a month without visitors to recover and bond with my daughter in peace. Richard respected this and kept mostly to himself, avoiding any discussions about the unresolved issues between us. When we finally opened our doors to family, Doris was eager to meet her granddaughter. "Congratulations on the birth," she said somewhat formally. "Thank you, Doris. How was it?" "Well, you've given birth before. You know what it's like," I replied, my patience wearing thin. "Cheryl, you can't speak to my mother like that," Richard interjected. As if on cue, Doris turned to Richard, ignoring my presence. "Richard, sweetie, did she do it?" "Do what?" he responded, playing along with her indirect questioning. "Hello, I'm still here," I snapped, frustrated. "Stop talking about me as if I'm not in the room and just tell me what you want to know." Richard sighed. Mom was asking if you've done the DNA test yet. I have not, and I won't be doing it either, I stated firmly. So, you're admitting to cheating on my son then? Doris accused sharply. That's not true at all. I think taking a DNA test would only damage whatever little trust is left between us, I explained, trying to hold back my frustration. The situation was fragile, and every accusation from Doris only served to deepen the wounds. The early days with my daughter should have been filled with joy, not tainted by mistrust and conflict. Refusing to take the DNA test was about more than just proving a point. It was about maintaining my dignity. Taking that test would only confirm your belief that I could be unfaithful, and that's not the kind of relationship I want, I told Richard firmly. By not taking it, you're making it seem like you're hiding something, Richard retorted, his voice strained with suspicion. The only thing I'm hiding is how deeply hurt and angry I am, I countered, my frustration growing. Throughout this pregnancy, you've hung on every word your mother has said, ignoring everything I've tried to communicate. You accused me of infidelity, added stress that complicated my pregnancy and labor, and you never once considered how your actions affected me. It seems you only care about what your manipulative mother thinks. Richard's defense was instant. Of course, you're defensive. Given your mother's questionable past, it's not surprising. Listen carefully, I replied sharply. You can insult me all you want, but don't bring my mother into this. And speaking of parenting, it's quite clear your mother raised you to be dependent on her. Without my support, you wouldn't even manage basic tasks like cooking. I've been the one enabling you to live independently. Richard's face hardened. My mom did what was necessary to raise me, and don't you dare speak about her like that. It seems I'll have to raise our child with the strength I've learned from my own experiences, not from the dysfunction you and your mother bring, I declared, my voice cold with resolve. It will be a long time before I allow you or her anywhere near my child, if this is how you choose to treat me. Before I could process the escalation, Richard's hand struck my face. Shocked, I stared back at him, unable to believe the man I thought I knew could express such anger physically. I had always seen Richard as passive and gentle, but this act shattered that image. As I tried to regain my senses, I felt my hair being yanked back. Doris's face loomed close to mine, her voice hissing, "Never speak to me with disrespect again," before she too slapped me. The yelling continued from both of them, but it was drowned out by the ringing in my ears from the blows. After they finally left me alone, the reality of the situation sank in. I had never been hit before. Not even my mother had ever raised a hand to me, not even playfully. This level of violence was horrifying. Hearing my baby cry, I hurried to ensure she was safe, alone in the house, reeling from the assault and the absolute betrayal I had just experienced. I scooped up my child and rushed to my car, aiming for the safety of my mom's house. I called her en route to ensure she was home and informed her I would be arriving soon. When I reached her doorstep, her warm greeting quickly turned to horror at the sight of my condition. "Hi, sweetie, what happened? Why is your face red and swollen?" she gasped, ushering me inside. "It was Richard," I managed to say, the words heavy with disbelief. "What? Why would he hit you?" she asked, alarmed. "He believes I cheated on him. Doris convinced him that's why I got pregnant," I explained, feeling the weight of the accusation anew. "Okay, this is urgent, but first I need to take pictures of your bruises. Is Ryan okay?" she asked with urgency. "Yes, he's fine. He cried a lot on the way here, but fell asleep shortly after," I replied, grateful for his calm now. As my mom prepared to document my injuries, she urged me to explain everything that happened. "Tell me exactly what went down," she insisted. I recounted the events as calmly as I could. When they demanded I take a DNA test to prove Ryan was Richard's, I tried to stay composed. But then Doris insulted your parenting, implying you raised me to be promiscuous, and I lost my cool." "Did you hit her?" Mom asked, concerned about how this could be perceived legally. "No, I would never resort to violence," I assured her. "Good. We must keep that clear. What happened next?" I swallowed hard. The memory was vivid and painful. I retaliated with words, criticizing her parenting. Richard didn't take that well. He slapped me, and then Doris. She grabbed my hair and slapped me too, warning me never to disrespect her again. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry you had to go through that," my mom said, her voice thick with emotion. "But we're taking this to court. I won't let you suffer what I did. Don't worry about anything. I'll handle all the paperwork. They'll pay for what they did to you." As my mom ensured I wasn't concussed, she instructed me to rest while she took care of my baby. Over the next few days, she shielded me from any stress, handling everything quietly. Doris's insults about my mom's past, her struggles as a single mother, were part of her cruelty. But my mom was determined to protect me and ensure justice for the violence I endured. When my mom was just out of high school, she found herself pregnant with me, without a degree and disowned by her parents. Left with few options, she ventured into a role that many might misunderstand. My mom became an escort, but not in the conventional sense many might think. She was stunningly beautiful and possessed a charismatic personality that could captivate anyone. Her job mostly involved accompanying high-profile clients to business dinners, leveraging her charm and eloquence. Through this, she built a network of influential connections across the city. These connections remained strong over the years, providing her with stability long after she retired from that world following my high school graduation. So, when she assured me she would handle the situation with Richard and Doris, I didn't question her capabilities. About a week after the dreadful confrontation, my mom informed me we were meeting Richard and Doris at a high-end restaurant. Though I trusted my mom's judgment, anxiety gnawed at me about the purpose of this meeting. As we arrived, Richard and Doris were already there, dressed elegantly. Despite their appearance, I remained wary. "Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Lynette. Please take a seat. Why don't you order something? The tab's on us," Richard offered, his tone overly cordial. "Why are you being so nice?" I asked, still shaken by our last encounter. "Oh, we've always been nice. You just didn't see it," Doris chimed in, trying to smooth over the past. "You weren't nice to my face or my scalp last time I saw you," I retorted, referring to the physical abuse. "About that, we're sorry for how we treated you." "We let our emotions take over, which was wrong," Richard admitted. "You call that a prophetic excuse?" I countered, skeptical of their sudden remorse. "Well, your mother lashed out at us after we insulted you, which was fair because honestly, you are an inspiring woman, and so is she," Doris explained, shifting her tone to one of admiration. "Why are you suddenly praising my mother?" "You had no problem insulting her and me before," I questioned, suspicious of their intentions. "If it sounded like an insult, I am sorry, we didn't mean it," Doris insisted. "I'm not here to be flattered by you. Nothing you say is going to change what's about to happen," my mom interjected firmly. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, confused by the turn of events. "What I mean is, these two have received court summons and are under investigation for abusing you and endangering Ryan," my mom revealed, her voice calm but authoritative. "I know you've looked down on my past, but it's that very past that connected me with some of the most influential people in this state." Richard and Doris looked genuinely shocked. "We had no idea how resourceful you are, Lynette. We are sorry for our actions." Richard apologized, his voice filled with regret. This confrontation at the restaurant was a turning point, laying bare the consequences of their actions and the unexpected strength and reach of my mother's past and present. Following the shocking revelation of Richard and Doris's actions, my mother coolly rejected their desperate plea for mercy. "Why should I spare you? You assaulted my daughter when you felt disrespected. Why wouldn't I pursue justice when she has bruises all over her face? Your feeble attempt to make amends won't work. I suggest you find a good lawyer and prepare for jail time and significant fines. Let's go now." I hadn't been aware of the specifics of my mother's actions until that moment, but watching Doris and Richard realize the gravity of their situation felt like a profound form of retribution. However, my mother wasn't done yet. Her determination and connections were about to be fully leveraged. She enlisted the best lawyer in the city to represent me, initiating charges of domestic violence and child endangerment against both Richard and Doris. The trial was not just a legal battle. It dragged their names through the mud, severely damaging their reputations. My mother, knowing several influential journalists, ensured the case was well publicized, exposing Richard and Doris's true characters to the entire community. The consequences for them were severe. Both were sentenced to 4 years in prison and faced heavy fines. Additionally, Richard lost his parental rights, and Doris was stripped of her parental rights. A restraining order was put in place, forbidding them from coming within 105 feet of me or my child. By the end of the trial, their lives outside prison seemed almost more daunting than their incarceration. Their professional and personal reputations had been irreparably tarnished. After the tumult had settled, I took my mother out to dinner at her favorite restaurant to express my gratitude. She explained that seeing me hurt had triggered her protective instincts, compelling her to act decisively. It was a poignant moment, making me look forward to nurturing and protecting my child, albeit hopefully under far less dramatic circumstances. Life as a single mother was challenging, especially with an infant to care for, but the peace of mind that came from knowing my child was safe from harm allowed me to focus on our future. I was thankful for my mother's unwavering support through such a harrowing time, and I was slowly rebuilding my life, secure in the knowledge that those who had hurt us were unable to do so any longer. Thank you for hearing my story. Greetings, I'm Elizabeth and I'm 35 years old. I never imagined I'd have such an unusual tale to share, but here it is. Prepare for a roller coaster journey. It was a bright, sunny afternoon when my in-laws, Samantha and David, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, arrived at our doorstep. They had just returned from a long-awaited vacation in Canada, a trip they had always dreamt of. Living in their native Spain, we seldom spent time together except during family gatherings or through occasional online chats. From these brief interactions, I had always believed our relationship was strong and positive. Unfortunately, I was soon to discover I was mistaken. Unknown to me, Samantha and David harbored secret plans to undermine both my daughter and me. Their visit was set to uncover a torrent of hidden bitterness and hostility, cleverly masked by their outwardly friendly demeanor. "How are you?" "I'm feeling great, Grandma." "Hi, Grandpa, how was your flight?" "Oh, it was tiring. I'm, exhausted. I need to rest. But not before some refreshments, surely." "Ah, Elizabeth, you spoil me. Hello, Ma. Hello, Papa. It's good to see you well." "Yes, my son. We made it. Thank God." "Hey, speak English, you two. We want to be part of the conversation. This is just your cue to polish up your Spanish, my dear." From this conversation, anyone would think we were the typical, joyful, extended family. I believed the same, but I was about to uncover truths that would make anyone reconsider their opinions about seemingly pleasant relatives. You see, after marrying into a Spanish family, I embraced a new culture and language alongside my husband, John. While I hadn't become fluent, I knew enough Spanish to pick up on subtleties and sense when things were off. Samantha and David always exhibited warmth and affection when John was present, but they hid their true feelings about me and my daughter, Olivia. The reality of their sentiments began to surface when John left for work. As a housewife, I started to see their true colors, revealing a side of them I had never anticipated. I spent most of my time at home managing our household and nurturing our family. With the arrival of my in-laws, I made sure to be around as much as possible so we could reconnect and spend quality time together. Olivia, having just wrapped up her freshman year at university, was home for the summer. This was a perfect opportunity for us both to bond with our relatives. I envisioned a joyful and harmonious time filled with laughter, games, and meaningful conversations. At first, everything seemed ideal. However, as the days passed, I noticed a troubling pattern. Their conversations increasingly shifted to Spanish, deliberately excluding Olivia and me. We tried to remain polite and didn't mention it, out of respect. But one day, Olivia couldn't hold back her confusion and frustration anymore. "Mom, why do they always speak in Spanish now?" "Oh, my love, it's okay. That's their comfort language, so we need to be accommodating," I reassured her. "But it's all the time now. I thought we'd get to hang out and enjoy this time together." "We will, sweetie, we will. Let's give them some time to adjust to Canada. It must be overwhelming. It'll get better, I promise." So, Olivia and I brushed it off as a quirky habit. But as days turned into weeks and their tone became colder when I entered the room, my suspicions grew. It seemed they were purposefully isolating us, confining their real thoughts to their private Spanish conversations. Olivia grew increasingly upset and puzzled by their behavior. She was eager to connect with her cool Spanish grandparents, but their actions made it incredibly challenging. To bridge the growing gap and bring us all closer, I suggested we play a game one evening. "The rules are simple," I explained. "We each tell 2 truths about ourselves and 1 lie. The rest have to guess the lie." "Oh, that sounds fun, and it would be a great way for us all to learn more about each other," I added, trying to inject some enthusiasm. To our surprise, Samantha and David seemed uninterested, even a bit annoyed at the idea. The atmosphere felt strained despite their reluctance and my attempts to be a gracious host. This game, meant to unite us, only highlighted the distance between us, making their discomfort and lack of interest painfully obvious. I abandoned the game idea and instead asked them what they would prefer to do. "I would like to drink some tea and chat with my husband," David responded abruptly. "Oh, okay. Can Mom and I join you?" I asked, hoping to be inclusive. His reply was curt and shocking. "No, my dear, we would just like to enjoy a quiet afternoon." "All right," I acknowledged, trying to mask my disappointment. "I understand you're much older and might not enjoy these games, but you two never talk to us. You're always speaking in Spanish." His reaction was swift and severe. "How dare you speak to us like this? So disrespectful. Were you raised on a farm? How dare you speak to my daughter that way?" I countered, my voice rising in defense. "She's just a kid who wants to spend time with her grandparents, but you're making it incredibly difficult." "Whatever, let's go, David," Samantha interjected sharply. They stood up and began speaking loudly in Spanish, not attempting to hide their conversation. Although I couldn't grasp every word, their tone and gestures made it clear they were speaking ill of us. I felt too humiliated to tell John about the incident when he came home that evening. I worried he might sense the tension at dinner, where, ironically, David and Samantha engaged us in friendly conversation as if the earlier conflict had never occurred. We played along, but the facade of a happy family dinner didn't sit well with Olivia and me. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a growing sense of betrayal, I decided to take action. As Samantha and David chatted in the living room over the next few days, I discreetly started recording their conversations on my phone. With each press of the record button, my hands trembled, but my resolve strengthened. I was determined to uncover the truth hidden in their secret talks. Over a week, I managed to accumulate several recordings of their discussions. I carefully documented each conversation, seizing every opportunity to capture their words. My collection of evidence grew. each recording adding to a growing dossier of their private exchanges. This was not just about understanding anymore. It was about discovering the full extent of their disregard and duplicity. My understanding of Spanish was basic at best, making it difficult to fully grasp their conversations. However, as I replayed the recordings repeatedly, I caught snippets of what sounded like harsh and rude language. The possibility of uncovering something truly unpleasant was daunting, yet I was determined to understand the full extent of what was being said. Fortunately, I had a friend who could help. Lisa, born in Mali and moved to the States as an infant, was perfectly bilingual, thanks to her parents who ensured she maintained her native language skills. Raised in Canada, she was the ideal person to assist me with the translation. One day I called Lisa and asked her to come over. To avoid any chance of Samantha and David spotting her, I discreetly brought her around to the back of the house. We found a quiet spot outside where we could talk without being overheard. I shared everything with Lisa: the odd behavior of my in-laws, my suspicions, and my fears. She was incredibly supportive, reassuring me that she would do whatever she could to help. From what you're telling me, it sounds like they're discussing some pretty concerning stuff. But don't worry, I'll do my best to assist in any way I can, she said. Thanks, love. You're a lifesaver, I replied, grateful for her friendship. Just doing my job as a best friend, she smiled. As I played the audio recordings for her, Lisa's expression turned pale and she began to tremble. Lisa, what's wrong? I asked, concerned. I can't breathe, she gasped, panic evident in her voice. She was struggling to breathe, and the situation quickly escalated as she experienced what seemed to be a severe panic attack. Fear and concern overwhelmed me as I tried to comfort her, guiding her to a shaded area where she could lie down. I'll be right back, I reassured her, rushing inside to grab a glass of water. Returning quickly, I helped her sip the water and gently massaged her arms to help her relax. Thankfully, her breathing gradually normalized, and she calmed down without Samantha and David noticing anything amiss. They were probably still busy chatting inside. During this time, Olivia, who had been near her bedroom window, heard the commotion and hurried down to see what was happening. Is everything okay? Olivia asked, arriving breathless with worry. Together, we managed to help Lisa fully recover, keeping the incident low-key to avoid drawing unwanted attention from the in-laws. I sat Olivia down to explain what had just happened, detailing that I had secretly recorded her grandparents' conversations. The content was so unsettling that it triggered Lisa's panic attack, and we were both apprehensive about what else we might discover. Once Lisa had calmed down and we were all in the privacy of my bedroom, she apologized for her reaction. Don't you dare apologize, I told her firmly. You did nothing wrong. All that matters is that you're safe now. Don't worry, David and Samantha didn't see you. They've moved to the front lawn, so Olivia and I managed to bring you upstairs without them noticing. You gave us quite a scare, Lisa, but I'm relieved you're safe now, Olivia added. Lisa sighed. I probably should have mentioned my tendency for panic and anxiety attacks, but honestly, I wasn't expecting to be hit with such shocking information. Tell us, Lisa, what were they saying? I urged gently. Lisa took a deep breath, sipped some water, and then began to explain what she had deciphered from the recordings. Elizabeth, Olivia, there's no gentle way to say this, so I'm just going to be straightforward. It appears Samantha and David are plotting something horrific. They're planning to sell Olivia to some very dangerous people. Olivia and I were stunned into silence, our jaws dropping in shock. That's not all, Lisa continued, her voice trembling. They also talked about selling you, Elizabeth. They've devised a plan to fake both of your deaths in a car accident that supposedly ends in flames, leaving no trace of your bodies. They believe they can make a fortune from this, especially because of Olivia's age. I felt nauseous, the room spinning around me as she spoke. They were so emotionless and cruel, discussing it as if it was nothing. That's why I panicked. Hearing someone talk so blatantly about such an evil act was too much for me. "You can take a break if you need to, both of you," I said, trying to maintain composure. "This is a lot to process." Olivia, looking pale and shocked, asked me, "Mom, why aren't you crying? Aren't you feeling sick?" "Of course I am sick to my stomach," I responded, my anger rising. "But right now I'm mostly furious. They threatened to harm you, Olivia, and I won't let that happen. We need to think clearly and decide what to do next." I knew I could never forgive them. They had said even more horrifying things, but for the sake of our mental well-being, I decided to withhold those details for the moment. The shock and fear that gripped me, Lisa, and Olivia were overwhelming. It was hard to believe that we had been living under the same roof as criminals for the past month. While fear was a constant companion, it was the unbridled rage within me that burned the brightest. I had an intense urge to confront them, to scream at them until they were nothing more than withered husks. But Lisa held me back. "June, I understand you're upset and you have every right to be," she said, her voice steady yet soothing. "But confronting them right now without a plan is not wise. You live with these people. Who's to say they won't retaliate in the worst ways possible?" "You're right. You're absolutely right," I conceded, the logic in her words grounding me. "We have the upper hand because we know what they're planning. We can't afford to lose that advantage." "So, what are we going to do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to get out of here now," she said firmly. "Go pack your essentials and make sure to lock your door just in case. I'll do the same. Lisa, please help her while I make a call to John." "Sure thing, we'll be back as soon as we're done," Lisa agreed. Once they left the room, the tears I had been holding back started to flow. The enormity of the revelations overwhelmed me, and I couldn't help but break down. Yet there was a part of me that felt relieved to have discovered the truth before it was too late. I wiped my tears and composed myself enough to call John. I told him everything, how his parents had treated us over the past month, their rude outburst after we suggested playing a game, and of course, about the secret recordings and what Lisa had translated. "John, you don't need translations to understand the gravity of their words, but you should be prepared for what you're about to hear," I explained. Lisa didn't go into every detail, but she told us enough to confirm that our safety here is compromised. "I'm taking Olivia to Lisa's house as soon as we're packed." With that plan set, I focused on the immediate task, ensuring our safety and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come once John was fully aware of the depth of his parents' betrayal. "I had to tell you everything, and I know it must feel like I've just dropped a bomb in your lap, but you needed to hear the truth." "Yeah, that's a lot to take in," John replied, his voice heavy. "I'm sorry I didn't share the other stuff earlier. I thought I could handle it on my own. I knew it would break your heart to learn we weren't getting along as well as you hoped. Let me listen to the audio, okay? I'll get back to you soon," he added. We ended the call and I immediately began packing my things, occasionally glancing through the window to ensure that the two culprits were still outside. By the time I finished, Lisa and Olivia returned to my room, and almost at that moment, John called again. His voice was filled with distress, a natural reaction upon discovering such betrayal from his parents. He insisted we leave the house immediately and meet him at Lisa's place, I relayed to Olivia and Lisa as we gathered our essentials. We slipped quietly into the car, parked in the garage, and drove away swiftly. I saw David and Samantha in the rearview mirror, clearly surprised to see us leaving. They tried to call, but I ignored the phone. Upon arriving at Lisa's, I immediately called the police and informed them about everything, directing them to our house to arrest my in-laws. About 25 minutes later, John arrived at Lisa's. We embraced, crying together, releasing the tension and fear that had built up. Meanwhile, Lisa kept us updated on the police's progress. The police had detained Samantha and David successfully. John told us that before coming to Lisa's, he had stopped at the police station to submit the digital evidence I had sent him. With all the evidence in their hands, the police could effectively handle the situation. Although we weren't there to witness it, I imagined the shock and disbelief on Samantha and David's faces as the police stormed into our home. They were caught completely off guard, arrested, and restrained due to the severity of their alleged crimes. The once manipulative and powerful couple was now powerless, their true natures exposed for all to see. The news of their arrest quickly spread through our community, causing disbelief and shock among our acquaintances and neighbors. It was surreal to think that such a dramatic, almost cinematic event was unfolding around ordinary people like us. The revelation that they were involved in human trafficking sent shockwaves throughout the town, shattering the respectable image they had maintained for years both here and back in their home country. The legal proceedings that followed were intense, with the prosecution presenting a robust case built on the compelling evidence we had gathered against Samantha and David. Their fall from grace was complete as the community and legal system responded with swift justice to the crimes they had hidden behind closed doors. Over the weeks, I managed to collect damning evidence, and in the courtroom, the actions of Samantha and David were fully exposed. There was no doubt about their guilt. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury, visibly shocked by the gravity of their crimes, delivered a unanimous verdict of guilty on multiple charges related to human trafficking and conspiracy. As the judge announced the verdict, a sense of relief and satisfaction swept through the courtroom. Samantha and David, once held in high esteem, now faced the stark reality of their actions. They were sentenced to lengthy prison terms and were to be tried in Spain as well, where the laws on such crimes are even stricter. It was clear they would likely spend the remainder of their lives behind bars, effectively removing them from society, a relief to everyone they had endangered. The news of their arrest and conviction spread far and wide, becoming a major national story and serving as a stern warning to others who might think they could commit such atrocities without consequence. It was a triumph for justice, a reminder that no one is above the law. In the aftermath, Olivia, John, and I focused on healing and rebuilding our lives. The trauma from Samantha and David's betrayal was deep, especially for John, but we supported each other through every step. Our family bond grew stronger as we worked together to overcome the emotional scars left behind. Olivia, my brave and resilient daughter, showed remarkable strength. She had seen the darkest sides of human nature, but was determined not to let this experience define her. With therapy and the unwavering support of her family, she embarked on a journey of healing and self-discovery. Through art and expression, she found solace and a way to process her emotions, gradually reclaiming her sense of security and confidence. John, my steadfast husband, was our rock throughout this ordeal. He supported both Olivia and me, offering unwavering love and understanding. Together, we attended counseling sessions, fostering open and honest communication as we addressed the deep wounds inflicted by Samantha and David. His calm presence and unwavering commitment to our family provided a solid foundation for our healing journey. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, despite the weight of what we had been through, we felt a collective sense of relief and hope. Our hearts were heavy, but also full of love and gratitude for the strength we found in each other. In a heartfelt family meeting about our collective journey and future intentions, the atmosphere was charged with diverse feelings, yet optimism infused the air with a promising glow. "Olivia, how have you been holding up? Your courage has been nothing short of incredible," I inquired gently. "Life's been a challenge, Mom, but I'm finding my way. Art has become my refuge. It's how I channel and soothe my struggles. And with therapy, I'm reshaping my outlook and slowly rebuilding trust," she explained. "We are incredibly proud of you, Olivia. Your resilience is truly inspiring to us all. Remember, you're never alone," I offered warmly. "Exactly, my dear. We're all in this together, supporting and lifting each other as we forge ahead. We've traveled a long road and the path ahead promises to be bright," her father echoed. "Thanks to both of you. I can't imagine navigating this without your steadfast love and support. Despite the hardships, we've grown stronger and are now poised to reclaim our lives and make impactful changes," Olivia acknowledged with a smile. "Indeed, love. We've walked through some dark times but emerged tougher and more determined. We refuse to be defined by the missteps of others. As a family, we'll craft a future brimming with love, joy, and satisfaction," I assured her. "We're a strong family unit, unbreakable in spirit. We've shown that. Let's keep nurturing each other, healing, and constructing the life we all envision. Stronger than before, we're eager to embrace whatever lies ahead," her father affirmed. The dialogue wove through a spectrum of emotions, from the shadows of past pain to the luminous hopes for the future. As we continued on our path to healing, we found comfort in each other, confident in our collective strength to overcome any challenges and create a life filled with happiness. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 36 years old. I was once married to Matthew, who was 3 years my junior. The age difference never bothered us until recently. I met Matthew at a party hosted by my friend Grace. Grace and Matthew knew each other from the gym. Matthew was a strikingly handsome man with a well-defined jawline and a robust build. He was also charismatic and always in high spirits. At that time, I was single, and Grace was eager to play matchmaker. During the party, Grace introduced me to every eligible bachelor there, including Matthew. "Hey, Matthew, meet Charlotte, my friend who's not only smart but also quite the catch financially," she announced. Embarrassed, I tried to downplay it, but Grace went on, "Don't be shy, it's a compliment." I managed a smile and thanked Grace, hinting that she could have also mentioned my other qualities. Grace quickly agreed, saying, "Absolutely, she's not just beautiful but also incredibly intelligent. You two enjoy your evening. I'll mingle with the other guests." Once Grace left, Matthew curiously asked why she called me a nerd. I explained, "I'm a graphic designer and work for a software company. My job keeps me busy, which means I rarely have time to socialize, earning me the nerd label among friends." Matthew was impressed. "That's fascinating, and I guess that's why they refer to you as the millionaire nerd." We both laughed, and that evening was spent in enjoyable conversation, deepening our connection. As our relationship progressed, Matthew and I began spending more time together, enjoying dinners and coffees after he'd pick me up from work. He was working as an assistant at a local firm. A few months into dating, Matthew proposed. Although I loved him, I hesitated, worried about the brevity of our relationship and our age difference. "Matthew, are you sure about this? We've only been together a short time, and besides, you're 3 years younger. Are you serious about us?" I asked, hoping for reassurance. "Oh, come on, Charlotte. Are you still hung up on that old-fashioned idea that the husband should be older than the wife?" Matthew questioned with a light-hearted tone, trying to ease my concerns. "It's not really about that for me," I responded, slightly defensive. "I was just wondering if it bothered you in any way." "Chill, Charlotte. You're a modern woman. These kinds of old notions shouldn't trouble you," Matthew reassured me, his voice full of encouragement. Gradually, Matthew convinced me that our future as a married couple looked promising. I agreed, and we soon met each other's families to share our decision. While my father, Peter, didn't voice any concerns and seemed genuinely happy about the wedding, my mother pulled me aside to have a private conversation. "Charlotte, honey, I hope you've talked about your finances with Matthew," she whispered, her expression marked with a hint of worry. "Yes, Mom, don't worry about that," I assured her. She continued, "I just want to make sure that your career success, since you're doing so much better than Matthew, doesn't become a problem. You know, men can sometimes feel overshadowed by these things." "Mom, Matthew is really sweet and understanding. He doesn't have those kinds of hang-ups. He's even agreed to take on more household chores since my schedule is so packed," I explained, trying to put her concerns to rest. "That's good to hear, dear. Just take care," she said, her voice softening. That conversation, however, triggered some thoughts. I realized I had never discussed finances in depth with Matthew, nor had I asked him about his earnings. My financial independence meant I wasn't particularly concerned about his income, yet I recalled that Matthew had asked about my salary even before proposing. For a while, these thoughts worried me, but I decided to put them aside, choosing instead to focus on the excitement of starting our married life together. After the wedding, we celebrated with a honeymoon in Hawaii, a trip generously sponsored by my company as a wedding gift. We relished our time together, fully embracing the joys of our new union. However, about a month later, Matthew approached me after dinner with a serious look on his face. "Honey, I'm sorry to ask you this, but I need your help," he started, appearing uneasy. "What's up, Matthew? Is everything all right?" I asked, concerned. "Well, no. My parents are facing some issues. They live in an apartment on the second floor, and without an elevator, it's becoming difficult for them as they get older," he explained. Understanding the situation, I suggested, "I see. Why don't you move them to a ground floor unit or somewhere with an elevator?" Matthew hesitated, then sidestepped my suggestion. "Actually, Charlotte, I was thinking more along the lines of building a house for them," he admitted, catching me by surprise with his proposal. "Okay, I hope you realize how expensive it is to build a house," I said, trying to gauge Matthew's understanding of the financial commitment he was suggesting. "Yeah, I know that," Matthew replied, but his tone lacked confidence. "Do you have enough savings, or are you considering taking out a loan?" I probed further, hoping he had a plan. Matthew looked uneasy for a moment before responding. "Charlotte, I was actually hoping you could lend me the money to build the house." His request caught me off guard. I was stunned and unsure what to say next. "Huh? What? But you know I've been saving to buy my own house someday, right?" "Yeah, but since you earn well, I thought it wouldn't be a problem for you," Matthew said, his voice taking on a more assertive edge. "But Matthew, I'm not sure I can lend that much money," I responded, feeling pressured. "Why not?" he persisted, becoming visibly frustrated. I was at a loss for words and managed to say, "Okay, let me think about it. I'll let you know." "Sure, I'll wait for your help," he said, leaving the conversation hanging as I spent a sleepless night pondering the wisdom of lending my hard-earned savings for his parents' house. My money was meant for my future security, including buying my own home and a comfortable retirement. The next morning, as I was heading out to work, Matthew hugged me and said, "I'll be waiting for your decision. Let's talk over the weekend. I know you're in a rush now." Feeling uneasy and conflicted, I sought advice from a colleague at work. She suggested making the financial arrangement official with a contract. "Have Matthew sign an agreement that ensures he repays you," she advised, emphasizing the importance of protecting my interests. This sounded like a prudent approach. That evening, I told Matthew, "I can lend you the money, but you'll need to sign a contract agreeing to repay me within 4 years." To my surprise, Matthew readily agreed. "Okay, I'll sign it," he said when I presented the papers, though his laughter when I mentioned the legal implications showed he hadn't fully grasped the seriousness of the situation. No, I'm serious, Matthew. Here are the papers, I insisted, holding his gaze until he realized I wasn't joking. Fine, I'll sign, he said with a smirk and signed the documents. I transferred the money, but despite the legal safeguard, I still felt uneasy. Matthew's salary wasn't substantial, and I doubted his ability to repay the loan. After signing the contract, Matthew's behavior started to change, becoming increasingly peculiar, which only added to my apprehensions about the decision I had made. Matthew's behavior had drastically changed since the loan. He started coming home late, often too exhausted to help around the house. Whenever I voiced my frustrations, he brushed them off, claiming his job kept him busy. My feelings for him began to fade as he became increasingly distant, spending most weekends overseeing the construction of his parents' new home and sometimes not coming home at all, opting instead to stay at his parents' place. The situation was taking a toll on me, and I decided it was time to confront Matthew about his recent actions. Matthew, do you realize how distant you've become? It feels like you're taking advantage of living here without contributing anything. His response was dismissive and sharp. What do you mean? How dare you accuse me like that? You knew my financial situation when we married. You chose this. I was stunned by his audacity. Excuse me? I'm not looking to argue, Matthew, but how can you be so indifferent? I'm even more upset about this housewarming party at your parents' new place tomorrow. A party for the house I funded, which you never even told me was finished. Matthew seemed to almost scoff at my reaction. Oh, my bad. I must have forgotten. Please be our guest, he said nonchalantly, then left the house humming, as if unbothered by the gravity of our conversation. Fuming with anger, I wanted to lash out and break something, but I managed to collect myself. An hour later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Hello, hi, just calling to let you know we're having a housewarming party at the new house tomorrow, she said casually. I hung up without responding further, feeling certain that Matthew had prompted her to invite me, not out of genuine desire, but as an afterthought. His indifference and the casual invitation from his mother left me deeply hurt and questioning the foundations of our relationship. Initially, I had reservations about attending the housewarming party because of the underlying tension between Matthew and his mother, who had never really taken the time to get to know or like me. Her cold demeanor from our first meeting through to after our wedding made me wary. Despite this, I was concerned that if I skipped the event, Matthew and his mother might use it as an opportunity to criticize me further, perhaps suggesting I was envious of their new home. Reluctantly, I decided to attend, determined to maintain a composed demeanor, albeit a forced one. As I arrived at the newly built house, I noticed the entrance was adorned with beautiful floral decorations. Matthew and his mother were welcoming guests warmly. My mother-in-law's reaction upon seeing me was less than enthusiastic. "Oh, you came. I thought you wouldn't bother," she remarked with a hint of surprise. "Why would you think that?" Matthew chimed in before ushering me inside. Inside, I was greeted more warmly by my father-in-law, who was sitting alone. His genuine smile and the sincere gratitude he expressed for my financial help were the only comforting moments of the evening. It was clear that neither Matthew nor his mother had acknowledged my contribution to their new home. Throughout the event, I felt isolated as Matthew and his mother barely interacted with me, leaving me to engage in half-hearted conversations with distant relatives. I was counting down the moments until I could leave what felt like an increasingly toxic atmosphere. After the guests had departed, I approached my father-in-law to say goodbye. "Take care of yourself," I said kindly. Just then, my mother-in-law interjected sharply, "You don't need to worry about my husband. Focus on your husband instead of neglecting him." Confused and upset, I responded, "What do you mean? I've never neglected Matthew. He volunteered to help with chores because I work full-time as well." Her accusations grew harsher. "You've been a terrible wife, forcing my son to do all the work around the house. And how could you coerce him into signing that financial agreement? You've been nothing but cruel to him." "I haven't forced Matthew into anything. The agreement was mutual to ensure financial security." "How can you say I've abused or tortured him?" I replied, shocked by her claims. At that moment, my father-in-law stood up for me. "Marilyn, stop! Why are you attacking her instead of appreciating what she's done for us?" But she wasn't having any of it. "Just stay out of this and go inside," she snapped at him. The situation was incredibly painful, and it was clear that no amount of reasoning would change her view of me. The evening left me more disillusioned with my relationship and family dynamics than ever before. I was completely taken aback by Marilyn's rude behavior towards Alan, and then her harsh words turned towards me. "You should be grateful my son even married you. Who else would marry someone old and unattractive like you?" she sneered. Her words stung, and I lost my temper. "How can you speak to me like this?" I retorted, my voice rising with my frustration. Matthew quickly intervened, scolding me. "Charlotte, watch your language. How dare you raise your voice at my mother?" "Didn't you hear how she just insulted me?" I replied, bewildered by his lack of support. Matthew dismissed me with a roll of his eyes. "I can't deal with your tantrums anymore." "My tantrums? Do you see how both you and your mother are treating me?" I exclaimed. "I can't stand to be around this negativity any longer. I don't want any part of this in my new dream home. Just get out." Matthew's response was cold and cutting. "What? Yes, I don't want to live with someone as despicable as you. You've been living off my income and now you call me trash? You're pathetic, Charlotte. Let's be clear. You married me because you thought you couldn't land someone as handsome as me given your age and looks, even though I wasn't earning much. So, you have no right to complain about money now." I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. "I can't stay with someone so shallow. I want a divorce and I want my money back," I yelled. Matthew laughed maliciously. "Sure, go ahead and get your divorce, but remember, you'll have to pay me if you want it." "What the hell? You should be the one to pay since you want the divorce," I argued back. Matthew's demeanor turned sinister, revealing a side of him I hadn't seen before. "You'll have to give back the money I lent you or I'll sue you," I threatened. "Go and find your stupid papers first," he retorted mockingly. Feeling numb and utterly defeated, I left the scene. They had both insulted and degraded me beyond endurance. I went straight to the bank where I had secured the papers in a locker, only to discover that the document was missing. When I checked the bank log, I saw that Matthew had accessed the locker a month ago. We had opened this joint account after our wedding, intended for both of our earnings, but it turned out I was the only one contributing. This revelation only added to my shock and sense of betrayal. After the unsettling discoveries, I checked my wardrobe where I'd also kept a copy of the loan agreement. It too was missing. All these events made it painfully clear how deeply Matthew had manipulated our relationship from the very beginning. His charm at Grace's party, his interest in my financial status, living comfortably off my earnings, and then emotionally pressuring me to finance his parents' house, every move was calculated. His final act was to attempt theft of the agreement to prevent me from claiming my money back. But I had anticipated some form of deceit. Sensing Matthew's possible betrayal over time, I had taken the precaution of keeping the original documents at my parents' house while storing copies in the bank and my wardrobe. Despite the emotional turmoil and the insults, I endured. I was relieved I had trusted my instincts to get the agreement signed and keep it secure from Matthew. I immediately called my mom and explained everything. She was furious upon hearing how I had been treated and suggested suing Matthew and his mother for their actions. During our conversation, she confessed she had always harbored doubts about Matthew's intentions. "Did you know about Matthew's motives?" I asked her. "No, not precisely, but I sensed his eagerness wasn't genuine. He rushed into the marriage so quickly," she replied. "You're right, Mom. I should have been more cautious. When I came home once, you asked if we had discussed our finances, and I lied, saying we had. I never really did. Nor did I inquire about his earnings because I wasn't concerned about his money. Take this as a lesson, dear. Don't trust someone so readily, she advised me. With a heavy heart but a clear mind, I hired a lawyer and prepared the divorce papers. I included an official notice demanding that Matthew repay the borrowed amount within 4 years. If he failed to comply, the court would be authorized to sell his property to reimburse me. Matthew and his mother were caught off guard when they received the divorce papers and the repayment notice. Suddenly, they were the ones feeling desperate, trying to reach out to me, but I was resolved to see through my decision and protect myself from further deceit. I ignored all their attempts to contact me, blocking their numbers. Matthew even tried reaching out to my parents, but they dismissed his calls as well. He left a voicemail on my office phone, apologizing and professing his love, claiming he was misled by his mother's influence and expressing hope for reconciliation. However, Matthew's history of manipulating my emotions for his schemes had taught me to be wary. I deleted the voicemail and ensured his number remained blocked. Matthew's lawyer later sent a message pleading for me to forgive at least 60% of the debt, citing Matthew's inability to meet the repayment terms due to his low salary. I dismissed this request outright. After everything, the deceit, the personal attacks, it was unthinkable to me that he expected any form of leniency. 4 years dragged by, and Matthew struggled to gather even half of the owed amount, resorting to taking out loans. Given his modest income, the bank's loan offerings were insufficient, forcing him to sell the house he had once banished me from. Ultimately, he had to move back into his parents' old apartment. Grace, a mutual friend, informed me that the local community had turned cold towards Matthew and his family after the truth emerged. Marilyn, his mother, resorted to working as a nanny, her behavior having alienated her from many. Matthew faced ostracization at work too, which led him to resign and relocate to another city. Even Alan, Matthew's father, left Maryland and moved to the countryside to live with his brother, seeking a peaceful retirement. Amid these developments, my personal life took a positive turn. I began dating Wayne, a 37-year-old colleague. We had known each other for years, but only connected romantically after interacting at an office party, a year following my divorce. This time, I approached the relationship with caution, taking time to understand and appreciate our connection before making any serious commitments. Reflecting on all these events, I felt no sympathy for Matthew or Marilyn, believing their outcomes were just repercussions of their actions. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the budding relationship with Wayne, cherishing our moments together and looking forward to what the future might hold. Greetings, my name is Alexis. I'm a 33-year-old woman and I've recently been through a whirlwind of events. I describe myself as somewhat naive, often missing the red flags that are right in front of me. This trait played a big role in the story I'm about to share with you. Thankfully, I have incredible people in my life who stand by me when I can't defend myself. But before I delve into the details, let me introduce you to a couple of significant people from my past, my ex-husband Kevin and my former best friend, Hannah. Hannah and I have known each other since high school. I was the quintessential introverted nerd, and Hannah was the standout beauty of our school, seemingly uncomfortable with the attention she attracted, though I suspect she enjoyed it more than she let on. For some reason, she took a liking to me, and we started spending a lot of time together after school. Our friendship grew stronger, and even though we attended different colleges, we stayed connected and visited each other regularly. After graduation, we both moved back to our hometown and resumed our close-knit friendship, meeting almost daily. Kevin came into my life when I was 23, Introduced to me by a mutual friend, we hit it off immediately, drawn together by his vibrant personality and infectious laughter. I've always prioritized personality over looks, having been around enough attractive people to know that appearances can be deceiving. Kevin and I dated for 3.5 years before we decided to get married. Our wedding was a joyful celebration, and despite the marriage not lasting, it remains a cherished memory, especially since I got to share the day with both Kevin and Hannah by my side. I remember feeling overjoyed that Hannah seemed to approve of Kevin. She made a noticeable effort to get to know him better from the moment I introduced them. One evening after we all spent time together, I asked her about her newfound enthusiasm. "What's with the sudden interest in someone I'm dating?" I inquired. "What are you talking about?" she responded, playing coy. "You know what I mean. You actually made an effort to ask him thoughtful questions and get to know him." I hadn't even brought it up yet when she teased me, saying, "Can you blame me? Just look at him. You snagged a real looker. Oh, should I be worried you might try to steal him away from me?" "No, I'm just joking around," she laughed, but then added seriously, "But honestly, he is quite handsome. And what's more, he's got a great personality. You know, to be honest, it's not even his looks that draw me in. It's his personality," I confessed. "He's just so charming and easy to be around. For me, his looks are just a bonus." "Wow, that must be why he's so into you. If I were in your shoes, his personality wouldn't even matter," she joked. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was just happy that she approved of my new relationship. As time went on, Hannah's friendship with Kevin only seemed to grow stronger. They got along wonderfully, which always filled my heart with joy. I loved seeing them get along, especially since Hannah hadn't really liked anyone I dated before. Kevin, Hannah, and I would often hang out together, and after Kevin and I moved in together 3 years into our relationship, Hannah was frequently at our house. It never bothered me. Kevin appeared to enjoy her company, so I never made an issue of it. There were times I'd come home from a long day at work to find Hannah and Kevin relaxing together on our couch, watching a show. They were quite physically affectionate with each other, but again, I didn't see it as a problem. I'm a very affectionate person myself and always appreciated having friends who were the same. I'm sharing all this to express just how blindsided I was by what I eventually discovered. This was about 6 months after Kevin and I had gotten married. It was a typical day. I came home late from work due to a major project. Seeing Hannah's car in the parking lot, I felt glad she was there. Because I knew Hannah often made up for her frequent visits by cooking for us, and I was particularly hungry that day, I was looking forward to a warm meal. When I entered our home, I was met with an unusual darkness. Normally, there would be at least a flicker of light from the TV, but not that day. Instead, a sliver of light peeked from beneath our bedroom door, sparking confusion. We rarely used our bedroom as a hangout spot unless all 3 of us were present. Despite my confusion, my trust in them was so deep that it didn't even cross my mind that they could be betraying me. Expecting perhaps that they had dozed off while waiting for me, I gently opened the bedroom door. What I saw stopped me cold. There they were, not just asleep, but in an intimate moment. I stood frozen, unable to process the scene before me. All I could feel was a sickening rise in my throat and a heavy drop in my stomach. I can't recall how I managed to close the door or how long I sat in the living room numb to my core. Reality only hit when Hannah, stepping out of the bedroom, exclaimed in surprise at seeing me, "Oh, you're back, Alexis. Tough day at work?" "Yeah, what were you guys doing in there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, nothing much, just took a nap," she replied casually. "How long have you been back?" she asked, trying to change the subject. "Don't worry about that. I saw you both in the bedroom," I said, my voice breaking. "Listen, Alexis, it's not what you think. It's not like your best friend and husband are betraying you," she stammered, but her words were hollow. I'm sorry, it just happened. You're always at work, and I guess Kevin and I just got lonely, Hannah tried to explain. Yeah, and I mean, we're super grateful for all that you do, especially since you're the main earner here, but maybe we got a little too lonely, Kevin added. Hearing them try to justify their actions only worsened the sting of betrayal. I can't deal with this right now, I said, barely able to hold back my emotions. Listening to their apologies felt like salt in an open wound. They were sorry, but the damage was done. Despite their attempts to apologize, their tone lacked any real remorse, and their expressions revealed nothing but convenience. It seemed their kindness was fueled by my financial support, a painful realization that made staying there any longer unbearable. The thought of breaking down in front of them was not an option. I couldn't let them see just how deeply they had hurt me. In a bid to escape the suffocating atmosphere, I got into my car and drove aimlessly, eventually stopping to grab some food. My appetite had vanished, but I felt a hollow emptiness that I hoped to fill with something, anything. I ate until I was uncomfortably full, then drove to my mother's house 3 hours away. Arriving close to midnight, I found solace in her surprised but welcoming presence. She could sense something was wrong as she made us warm cocoa, her gentle care a stark contrast to the cold betrayal I had just experienced. We sat in silence, the kind that only a mother and daughter can share before she finally spoke. I don't hate that you're here, but clearly something's very wrong. Take your time, darling. If you want to talk about it, I'm here, she offered softly. Yes, I need to talk about it. Maybe it'll help me process everything, I replied, the words tumbling out in a rush. I walked in on Kevin and Hannah today, in our bedroom. Her face fell, mirroring the shock I felt. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Did you come here right after finding out? I didn't talk to them. I told them I knew and walked out before I had to listen to any more of their excuses. I explained, my voice tinged with bitterness. That's probably for the best. They didn't seem genuinely sorry, did they? She asked, already knowing the answer. It explains why Hannah was so overly friendly with Kevin. I knew she found him attractive, and I know she's attractive herself, but I never expected them to act on it, I confessed, the betrayal still fresh. I understand, sweetheart, it's a tough situation, but how you handle this will truly set you apart from them. They've shown their true colors. What you do next is important. Is it bad that I just walked away? I asked, seeking her wise counsel in navigating the heartbreak. I found myself contemplating giving Kevin another chance, not because I fully trusted him again, but because I was reluctant to label my first marriage a failure. Look, I'm not fond of that reasoning, but as your mother, I must support you in whatever decision you make. Do what you feel is right, my mom advised gently, even though she didn't agree with my logic. Thanks, Mom, I replied, knowing deep down my rationale was flawed. Why was I considering reconciling with Kevin but not Hannah? After all, both were equally involved in the affair. It wasn't as if one was more culpable than the other. At that moment, I suppose I clung to the hope that Kevin still loved me. Yet, in my heart, I knew forgiveness was unlikely. Maybe therapy could help us, I thought. As for Hannah, she had been my best friend since high school. I knew her flaws well, and despite them, I had always stood by her until now. Her betrayal was a line crossed. Her blatant attraction to Kevin, which I had previously dismissed, now seemed like a glaring warning I had ignored. Our friendship, rich in history, couldn't withstand this. I spent the next 4 days at my mom's house, avoiding calls and texts from Kevin and Hannah. It seemed Hannah had spoken to our mutual friends as they too began reaching out. I took a week off work to ensure no professional obligations would force me back into immediate contact with them. When I finally felt ready to return home, my mom wished me luck. After a heartfelt goodbye, I drove back, deliberately slow, dreading the confrontation that awaited. As I pulled up, I saw Hannah's car still parked where it had been days ago. My anxiety quickly morphed into anger. How could she still be there after everything? Were they still together during my absence? How little did they regard my feelings? Each thought was a blow to my composure. Taking deep breaths to manage my rage, I prepared myself to face whatever lay inside my apartment. For some reason, I felt a strong urge to document everything that was about to unfold, so I set my phone to record and slipped it into my pocket as I entered the house. What I saw next only fueled my resolve. Kevin and Hannah were cuddled up on the couch, lost in some show. They startled as I walked in. Kevin sprang up and moved towards me, attempting to embrace me, but I pushed his hands away. He looked wounded, while Hannah avoided my gaze altogether. "I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes to explain yourselves," I declared, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "After that, I want Hannah out," Kevin started. "I'm so sorry you had to see that." "Sorry I caught you, or sorry you were together?" I interrupted sharply. "So what are you sorry for, really? That you got caught?" Hannah finally spoke up. "I'm sorry, Alexis, but Kevin and I are in love. We're not sorry for being together." "So what are you sorry for then? You've had eyes for him since day one. I should have seen it coming, but I trusted you," I shot back. Kevin chimed in. "I've had feelings for her from the start too. Then why stay with me? You should have just spared me this pain and been together from the start." "We didn't want to lose you," Kevin tried to explain. "And you thought having an affair behind my back wouldn't make you lose me. Do you hear how that sounds?" I was incredulous. "I don't know what else to say, Alexis. I love her, and I can't hide it anymore." "I've been meaning to talk to you about a divorce," Kevin admitted, his voice faltering. "A divorce? We've only been married 6 months. How long has this been going on?" "We've been together for about a year. I've wanted a divorce almost since we got married. I just felt bad about marrying you and then leaving," Kevin confessed. "So, you never intended to work things out with us?" I asked, the reality sinking in. Hannah added another shock. "I'm pregnant, Alexis. Am I supposed to be happy for you?" "We dreamed of raising kids, but that was before you betrayed me," I snapped, feeling a cold finality setting in. "Don't be like that, Alexis. We wanted to wait for you to come back to tell you that we're getting married next month," Hannah said, almost pleadingly. "Before you say anything, all our stuff is packed," Kevin added, indicating a pile of boxes. This was the ultimate betrayal, not just of a marriage, but of a friendship I thought would last a lifetime. Kevin's next words hung heavily in the air. "We'll be out of your place soon. Alexis, I still think of you as my best friend. Please, consider coming to the wedding if you can." The irony of his request only fueled my anger. "Go to hell, both of you," I blurted out, surprised by the harshness of my voice, but they had pushed me to my breaking point. Each sentence they uttered felt like another blow, undermining the years we had shared. They had deceived me for over a year, rendering all my efforts to salvage our relationship meaningless. Hannah's audacity to still consider me a friend and even invite me to her wedding was beyond infuriating. At that moment, all I wanted was to lash out at something, anything. I watched them cling to each other, a bitter reminder of their betrayal. If only Kevin had been honest earlier, I could have stepped aside graciously. Why drag me through such pain? Overwhelmed, I retreated to the bedroom and locked myself in. The exhaustion from the drive and the draining confrontation left me too tired to even cry. I collapsed into a restless sleep. When I awoke the next morning, the apartment was eerily quiet. Walking out of the bedroom, I found it empty except for my things. The stark emptiness was a harsh finality to what had been my life with them. Gratefully, my landlord showed compassion, allowing me to break my lease without issue. I decided it was best to move back in with my mom. It felt like a step back, but I needed the emotional support now more than ever. The two people I had trusted most had betrayed me deeply. As I settled back into my old room, the familiarity of my childhood home brought a small comfort. I sought therapy and immersed myself in my work, trying to mend the pieces of my broken heart. As the days turned into years, the sharpness of the pain dulled. I focused on my career, and my efforts paid off with a significant promotion at work. This achievement marked a new chapter in my life, one where I finally began to heal and rebuild away from the shadows of betrayal. As time passed, I had grown professionally and was financially better off than before, but interactions with mutual friends occasionally reopened old wounds. Despite this, my mom had been an incredible support system, insisting I live with her, which I did. Then, one unexpected day, I received a call from Kevin's mom, Judy. I was both confused and concerned about why she would call me. We had only met a few times, but she had always seemed kind. With some hesitation, I answered the call. "Hello, Alexis? Yes, this is Judy, Kevin's mom." "Yes, I know. I have your contact saved. How are things?" "Well, it's okay. Why? Is everything all right?" "No, not really. I only just found out about what Kevin did to you. I'm sorry it took me so long to reach out. I just wanted to let you know that I am in no way on his side." "Oh, it's been a while since that happened. Thanks for calling, though. I appreciate it." "Yes, and I want to make up for it. How do you feel about getting some revenge on Kevin and Hannah?" "Revenge? Don't you think it's a little too late for that?" "Oh, honey, are you still not hurting? It's never too late to teach people a lesson who wronged you." "You're right. What they did still haunts me. I haven't made any solid friendships yet, nor have I even tried to date anyone since. They deserve to be held accountable." "Great, because I have a plan," Judy began, revealing more about her life. She had remarried a wealthy businessman who, unbeknownst to her, had been supporting Kevin by giving him a job in his company. Kevin and Hannah had been struggling financially since our divorce, and Judy was under the impression that Kevin and I had amicably parted ways, and that Hannah was merely a supportive friend who eventually became a romantic partner. Judy had only recently discovered the truth about their relationship and the real reason behind our divorce. She felt deceived by Kevin's lies and was now eager to set things right, or at least make them face some consequences for their actions. Judy found out the truth about what Kevin and Hannah had done to me during an outing where Hannah, perhaps loosened by a few drinks, divulged the details of their affair. Judy was horrified by the revelations and immediately contacted me, which comforted me greatly. Despite Kevin and Hannah's marriage, they were struggling, which somehow felt like a small justice to me. Judy then inquired if I had any proof of their betrayal. I confirmed that I had recorded our confrontation, capturing their admissions. She asked me to send her the recording and promised to handle things from there. The fallout was swift. Within 2 weeks, Kevin called me, an interaction I hadn't anticipated after 4 years of silence. "What did you do?" Kevin demanded as soon as I answered. "Hello to you too," I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite his aggression. "Don't be sarcastic with me right now. You got me fired and disowned all at once." "Oh, is that why your mom called me? Do you mean the recording of our conversation that you knew about? What kind of freak keeps something like that?" "Not as much of a freak as you, apparently," I countered. "How did you even get fired?" "My stepdad values morals and ethics highly. Once he heard the recording, he wanted nothing to do with me, and neither did my mom." "That's tough. It's been 4 years, Kevin. You couldn't let it go. Had to ruin everything for me, right?" "I didn't do any of that. Hannah went drinking with your mom and spilled everything. Blame your wife, not me, but I'm glad you got what you deserved. Enjoy your life, Kevin." With that, I hung up. I was astounded by Judy's actions. She had truly taken my side, going as far as to ensure her husband publicly shamed Kevin to underline the consequences of his actions. I called Judy to thank her for her support, And during our conversation, she mentioned how her husband had made it a point to denounce Kevin in front of all his staff, ensuring he felt the full weight of his humiliation. Knowing this brought a sense of vindication. It reassured me that no matter how much someone tries to wrong you, eventually their actions catch up with them. Later, Judy shared with me that Kevin and Hannah had a massive fallout after he found out it was Hannah who had inadvertently revealed their secrets. They were now living separately. Whatever their future holds, I feel they brought it upon themselves. Amidst all the turmoil, a silver lining emerged. I gained the unwavering support of two remarkably strong women, my mother and my ex-mother-in-law. These relationships have become a source of strength and comfort for me, and I am eager to see how they will continue to grow. I look forward to what the future holds, knowing that with the support of these incredible women, I can face anything.